Thank you for visiting my channel. Before we start, please hit the subscribe, like, and share buttons to receive notification of future presentations. Our lesson for today is strict liability in tort law. Understanding strict liability. In tort law, strict liability is a standard of liability under which a person is held legally responsible for the damages or injuries caused by their actions or products, regardless of fault, negligence, or intention. Unlike standard tort claims, where a plaintiff must prove the defendant acted carelessly, negligence, or with malice, intentional torts, strict liability focuses entirely on the act itself and the resulting harm. Under this doctrine, a defendant can take every possible precaution to prevent harm and still be held liable if damage occurs. Foundations and rationale. The legal rationale behind strict liability is rooted in public policy, safety, and economics. First, risk allocation. The law places the burden of loss on the party best equipped to manage, insure against, or absorb the risk, typically corporations, manufacturers, or individuals engaging in inherently dangerous activities. Second is injury prevention. It incentivizes actors to maximize safety measures or reconsider engaging in highly dangerous activities altogether. And third, simplification of proof. It relieves injured plaintiffs of the often insurmountable burden of proving exactly how a manufacturer or actor was negligent behind closed doors. Traditional categories of strict liability. Strict liability is generally limited to three distinct legal categories. First, ultra-hazardous or abnormally dangerous activities. If an activity creates a foreseeable and highly significant risk of physical harm, even when reasonable care is exercised, it is deemed abnormally dangerous. Example, blasting or demolition, storing radioactive materials, crop dusting, and keeping large quantities of explosives or toxic chemicals. Second is keeping wild or dangerous animals. Owners of wild or dangerous animals like lions, bears, venomous snakes are strictly liable for any harm they cause, as these animals possess natural inclinations to be dangerous. And third, products liability. Manufacturers, distributors, and retailers can be held strictly liable if a defective product they placed into the stream of commerce causes injury. The defect typically falls into one of three categories. First, manufacturing defects. A flaw that occurs during production, making the item depart from its intended design. Second is design defects. The product's inherent design makes it unreasonably dangerous even if manufactured perfectly. And third is marketing defects, failure to warn. Inadequate instructions or a failure to warn consumers of non-obvious hidden dangers. Key jurisprudence and landmark cases. Rylands versus Fletcher, 1868. This landmark English case is the foundational cornerstone of strict liability for abnormally dangerous land use. The facts: the defendant constructed a reservoir on his land. Water broke through filled-in shafts of an abandoned coal mine under the property and flooded the plaintiff's neighboring active coal mine. The defendant himself was not negligent because he had hired competent independent contractors. The ruling: the House of Lords held the defendant liable. Lord Cranworth famously stated, "If a person brings or accumulates on his land anything which, if it should escape, may cause damage to his neighbor, he does so at his peril." The legal principle: this established the non-natural use rule. If you bring something onto your land that is not naturally there and is likely to do mischief if it escapes, you are strictly liable for the consequences of its escape. The next case is Greenman versus Yuba Power Products Inc., 1963. This case revolutionized American consumer law by establishing strict products liability. The facts: the plaintiff was injured while using a shopsmith multipurpose power tool when a piece of wood flew out and struck him in the head. The ruling: the California Supreme Court abandoned traditional contract law requirements like privity of contract or warranties for consumer injuries. Justice Roger Traynor ruled, a manufacturer is strictly liable in tort when an article he places on the market, knowing that it is to be used without inspection for defects, proves to have a defect that causes injury to a human being. The third case is Indiana Harbor Belt Railroad Company versus American Cyanamid Company, 1990. This influential modern American case clarified the limits of what constitutes an abnormally dangerous activity. The facts: a chemical manufacturer loaded liquid acrylonitrile, a toxic flammable substance, into a railroad tank car. The car leaked in a Chicago switching yard, forcing evacuations and costing millions in cleanup. The ruling: Judge Richard Posner ruled that shipping the chemical did not warrant a strict liability standard. He argued that the accident could have been prevented by exercising ordinary care or negligence standard. Strict liability should only apply when the inherent danger of the activity cannot be eliminated through reasonable care. Another case is Ricards versus Luthien, 1913. This is a landmark Privy Council case that shaped modern tort law. It established that a defendant is not strictly liable under the rule in Rylance versus Fletcher if an escape of dangerous material is caused by the unforeseeable, malicious act of a third party and if the use of the land is natural. The facts: the defendant owned a commercial building. An unknown third party maliciously blocked the sinks and turned on the taps in a communal fourth floor lavatory. The damage: the deliberate flood traveled down to the second floor, ruining the plaintiff's stack of school books. The lawsuit: the plaintiff sued for damages, attempting to rely on the principle of strict liability of escaping substances established in Rylance versus Fletcher. Key legal takeaways: malicious act of a third party. The Judicial Committee of the Privy Council ruled that a property owner or occupier cannot be held liable for an escape if it was directly caused by the deliberate and wrongful act of an independent third party over whom the defendant had no control. Definition of natural use: the court refined the doctrine of strict liability by establishing that the accumulation must be a non-natural use of the land. The installation and ordinary maintenance of a domestic water supply and lavatory in a multi-story building was deemed a natural and ordinary use of the property. Broader significance: the case serves as a major limitation on the rule in Rylance versus Fletcher by requiring that the defendant's use of land be non-natural and entirely barring strict liability when a malicious stranger is the true culprit. The court protected property owners from being penalized for events they could not reasonably foresee or prevent. Affirmative defenses to strict liability. Assumption of risk: if the plaintiff fully understood the specific danger and voluntarily chose to encounter it anyway, like ignoring warning signs, entering a cage with a wild animal, or playing with a venomous snake, the defendant may be cleared of liability. Product misuse or alteration. In products liability, if a plaintiff uses a product in an entirely unforeseeable, reckless manner or significantly alters the product after purchase, strict liability may not apply. Comparative fault. Many modern jurisdictions apply comparative negligence principles to strict liability, reducing the plaintiff's financial recovery if their own carelessness contributed to the accident. Statutory authority. If an action is explicitly mandated or protected by local or state legislation, it may shield an entity from strict liability claims. Act of a stranger. The scenario: a company owns a commercial property with a large elevated outdoor water tank. A trespasser climbs over the security fence at night, maliciously twists open the heavy-duty drainage valves, and plugs the property's main drains with concrete blocks. The next morning, the escaping water floods into the basement of a neighboring retail shop, destroying thousands of dollars worth of inventory. The ruling: a defendant will not be held strictly liable if the escape was caused entirely by the malicious, independent, and unforeseeable act of a third party over whom the defendant had no control. Landmark case reference. This scenario mirrors Ricards versus Luthien, 1913, which established that the malicious act of a third party defeats a claim of strict liability. Finally, we have fortuitous event as defense in strict liability. The defense of fortuitous event or caso fortuito, also heavily intersecting with force majeure or an act of God, is a recognized exception to strict liability. While strict liability removes the need to prove a defendant's negligence or fault, it does not mean liability is absolute. Under established jurisprudence, particularly in civil law jurisdictions and specific statutory frameworks, a fortuitous event completely severs the causal link between the defendant's dangerous activity and the resulting injury. However, courts hold this defense to an extraordinarily high standard to prevent strictly liable parties from easily escaping accountability. The four-element jurisprudential test. For a defendant to successfully claim exemption from strict liability based on a fortuitous event, jurisprudence dictates that all four of the following criteria must be met. First, independent of human will. The cause of the unforeseen story or escape must be entirely independent of the will of the obligor or defendant. Second, unforeseeable or inevitable. The event must be something that either could not be foreseen or, if it could be foreseen, was completely impossible to avoid. Third, render performance impossible. The occurrence must render it impossible for the defendant to fulfill their duty of absolute containment or safety. And fourth, no concurrent negligence. The defendant must be entirely free from any human participation, negligence, or aggravation of the injury. The following are Civil Code provisions on strict liability. Article 2183. The possessor of an animal or whoever may make use of the same is responsible for the damage which it may cause, although it may escape or be lost. This responsibility shall cease only in case the damage should come from force majeure or from the fault of the person who has suffered damage. Article 2187. Manufacturers and processors of foodstuffs, drinks, toilet articles, and similar goods shall be liable for death or injuries caused by any noxious or harmful substances used, although no contractual relation exists between them and the consumers. Article 2189. Provinces, cities, and municipalities shall be liable for damages for the death of or injuries suffered by any person by reason of the defective condition of roads, streets, bridges, public buildings, and other public works under their control or supervision. Article 2190. The proprietor of a building or structure is responsible for the damages resulting from its total or partial collapse if it should be due to the lack of necessary repairs. Article 2191. Proprietors shall also be responsible for damages caused 1. By the explosion of machinery which has not been taken care of with due diligence, and the inflammation of explosive substances which have not been kept in a safe and adequate place. 2. By excessive smoke which may be harmful to persons or property. 3. By the falling of trees situated at or near highways or lanes, if not caused by force majeure, And 4, by emanations from tubes, canals, sewers, or deposits of infectious matter constructed without precautions suitable to the place. Article 2192. If damage referred to in the two preceding articles should be the result of any defect in the construction mentioned in Article 1723, the third person suffering damages may proceed only against the engineer or architect or contractor in accordance with said article within the period therein fixed. Article 1723. The engineer or architect who drew up the plans and specifications for a building is liable for damages if within 15 years from the completion of the structure, the same should collapse by reason of a defect in those plans and specifications or due to the defects in the ground. The contractor is likewise responsible for the damages if the edifice falls within the same period on account of defects in the construction or the use of materials of inferior quality furnished by him or due to any violation of the terms of the contract. If the engineer or architect supervises the construction, he shall be solidarily liable with the contractor. Acceptance of the building after completion does not imply waiver of any of the cause of action by reason of any defect mentioned in the preceding paragraph. The action must be brought within 10 years following the collapse of the building. And finally, Article 2193, the head of a family that lives in a building or a part thereof is responsible for damages caused by things thrown or falling from the same. Thank you. If you find this presentation helpful, please subscribe to receive notification of future lectures.